Hey, dude. Oh, wait. Sorry, Eli. Hey, Eli, how's it going? I sent dude a message, but I haven't seen hide nor hair of him. Um, I actually was going to cancel tonight. I just wasn't feeling it there for a little bit, and then I changed my mind. So I decided to come on. It goes. I hear you, man. Same. It goes. Dude showed me a picture of some of the things you made here recently, man. Looks so fucking delicious. Oh, I'm glad you enjoy it, man. Thanks, Eli. That really makes me feel good, man. I appreciate that. Sometimes I just feel like, I'm just really just reading to myself again. Yes, that Cuban classic Stromboli. Oh my god, dude, that Eli, that looks so fucking good. I swear to I swear to Bob's your uncle for fuck's sake. And the way the economy's going, man, I swear to God, I may need a job. So, if you need a dishwasher or a prep guy in that fucking place, let me know. Job market's gonna be fucking flooded with people. Not only from the people laid off from government jobs. It looked like it was that fucking good, man. Let me tell you. It looked like it was that good from the pictures. Hey, if you're new here, thanks for coming in. Oh, and to you too, last Druid. I've got to tell you, love and appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by. How's your head? And if you're new, please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. You don't have to watch my videos. Just give me the subscription. I'd be happy with that. I did. God damn it. That fucking vape. My God. I did tell dude. Random YouTuber. Thanks for coming in. Love and appreciate you. How's your head? And hello. I did tell the dude. If you're new to me, I didn't tell the dude that, but random YouTuber, if you're new to me, please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Anybody that's new here, please subscribe to my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. You don't have to watch my videos. I post a couple times a week or semi-weekly. Random YouTuber, I'm glad you're here, even though you're new. Oh, thank you, random YouTuber. I greatly appreciate that. I read obscure books. The one I'm reading live tonight is Callahan's Crosstime Saloon. And we are reading from, let me see, we're going to do chapters 6 and 7, I believe, because chapter 6 is a small one. I just got done reading, probably, I don't know, a couple months ago. Seems like it hasn't been that far. I was reading the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. And we finished that up finally. But now I'm reading this. And once this one's done, I'll pick another book. Some kind of fantasy book of some type is what I usually read. And I... oh. The weed's getting to me. And of course I do all this stoned. Oh yeah, I'm okay, random YouTuber. I'm just a stoner. And the vapes get to me. Hey, there's the dude. It makes me cough. Of course, I'm well past 50, so these old lungs doth protest. In vain they do. Because I ain't stopping. Never gonna happen there, random YouTuber. You live your life, I'll live mine. And we'll all get along. See, that's the problem with the world today. People think their rules should apply to everybody else. You're not here to police my business. You're here to live your life just as I'm here to live mine. So if you don't like vaping, good, don't vape. That's entirely up to you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. So I think you should mind your own business and not tell me. Thanks, random YouTuber. I appreciate you. So tonight we're going to be doing chapters 6 and 7 out of Callahan's Crosstime Saloon. I did tell the dude that I did tell the dude that I'm skipping a chapter in this book because it has singing in it. It has a couple songs, and you, for God's sakes, do not want me singing because it is not a pretty thing. Let me tell you a short story. The only time I ever sang in public, I used to go karaoke. Well, I didn't karaoke. I just had friends that karaoke'd. And I used to go along with them, and they would try to get me up to sing all the time. And they figured the drunker I got, the more I would sing. And nah, I just never sang because I know I cannot carry a tune in a bucket. And it is a disgusting noise that comes out when I attempt to sing. So anyhow, this one night, of course, the people that had the karaoke business, they would have a party every summer at the owner's farm, at his little farmette. And so one night we packed up the old karaoke from the bar we always gathered at and ventured on over to the farm, and we were going to kick off the farm weekend bash. And we arrived there, I'm pretty sure it was Thursday night, so it was going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, anywhere else, just crimes against humanity. Yeah, absolutely. So, we're pretty drunk. We probably shouldn't have been driving. It was a convoy of drunks. Well, I think the owner, he wasn't the one. He wasn't drunk. He didn't drink while he was doing his karaoke business. Anyhow, I digress. So, we get there, and he's setting up his karaoke stuff in the barn. So I grab the mic, and he puts on a song, and I start to sing, and sure as shit, there's a good view. I can see, like, the road and all down the road there coming from different directions. It's a nice little country area. And sure as shit, can I see the blue and white whirl lights, and I can hear, well, they're not doing sirens because it's like 3 in the fucking morning. It's probably 4 in the morning. So we, the cops got called. And he had to get in his golf cart and go down to the end of the lane and meet with the cops. And he got a noise ordinance violation. And from then on, I was never asked to sing karaoke again. And in fact, if anyone would ask for me to sing karaoke, he would just say no. No, he doesn't do karaoke. Last time he did karaoke, the cops are called. And we don't need a noise order. It's fine. And I've got a neighbor, so he, I don't need him calling the cops. Yeah, it's not a pretty thing, man. Especially if you put a goddamn microphone. It's even worse. But that saved me from having to do karaoke. My dad was a good singer. He had a great voice. My mother, on the other hand, made, hey, bye, random YouTuber. Greatly appreciate you, buddy. Yeah, I'm getting ready to read here in about 2 minutes. I usually start reading about 10 after. So I'll quit rambling in just a second. But anyhow, I skipped a chapter. That's the reason why. And we're going to do with chapter 6. How's that go? Chapter 6 sounds good to me. All right, kids. Let's see. What time is it? It's 10:08. 10:09. Depending on which one I'm looking at here. But we'll give him another minute here. See if Ray comes in. Or a few other people might come in. That I sent out to. Possibly Maddie if he gets a chance. I don't know. But we shall see. We shall give it one more minute. And I dropped my Drop my bookmark. So, long story short, I inherited my mother's non-ability to sing, not my father's. I didn't inherit any of my father's good genes. Like his olive complexion. He had a great tan every year. Jet black hair. Jet black hair to the day he died, and he died at 69. Never dyed it. Never had a gray hair in his head. Always had it combed in a cowlick here in the front. Nice big pompadour kind of 50s style. But the singing voice, he had a great singing voice. I did get his deep voice because his voice was deep like mine. But I just didn't get the singing part. Now, I got my mother's inability to sing. I got my mother's light-colored hair, thin hair. I got my mother's double cowlick in the back and balding spot. Just love it. I did get my father's attitude and mental illnesses, though. That was kind of him. Appreciate that, Dad. All right, here we go. It's now 10:11, so we're on the way. Time to read, everybody. We're going to do chapter 6 and probably chapter 7 tonight, because chapter 6 is a shorty. So here we go, chapter 6, Just Desserts. Sooner or later, just about every bar acquires that most obnoxious of nuisances, the practical joker. I'd have thought Callahan's place would be immune to that particular kind of carbuncle. We don't seem to pick up the standard idiots that most saloons have to put up with. The weepy drunks and the belligerent loudmouths and the ones who drink to get stupider. It's almost as though some sort of protective spell ensures that the only people who find Callahans are the ones who should. And the ones who must. Nice, dude. Sufferer of the brothers of the double cowlick crowns. But very occasionally, some refugee from the Dewdrop Inn does accidentally wander in, usually for just long enough to make us appreciate his absence when he finally leaves. There was, for instance, the guy of an ethnic extraction I can't specify without getting a lot of Italians mad at me, who represented a jukebox concern. He made Callahan an offer he couldn't refuse. So Mike didn't bother refusing. The guy's broken arms eventually healed. I understand, but he never got over the amnesia. Then there was the gent who broke his young secretary in. Brought his young secretary in to get her drunk for carnal purposes. Callahan got a little sloppy that night. Somehow all the ginger ale ended up in her glass and all the vodka in his. When he woke up, he was a far piece from nowhere, minus a secretary and a rather sporty pair of pants. When the practical joker arrived, however, it was not Callahan but Doc Webster who fixed his wagon. It was a Friday night, and the place was more crowded than Dollar Day in a cat house. Fast Eddie was sharing his piano bench with 3 other guys. Callahan and Tommy Hopman were behind the bar, busier than a midget. Busier than a midget mountain climber. And we were plumb out of beer nuts. Me, I was sandwiched between Doc Webster and Noah Gonzalez at the bar, feeling the urgency of hydraulic pressure, wishing there wasn't a wall of folks between me and the Jake. I guess it was the huge number of cars scattered around out in the parking lot that made that sadistic jackass think he'd found the perfect place to pull off his little gag. Come to think of it, maybe fate was leading him to Callahan's after all. In any case, he came sauntering through the throng with his two buddies on either side of him at about 11, and the three of them took up position at the bar just beside the dock. I noticed them out of the corner of my eye and gaped like a fish with lockjaw. The guy in the middle was plainly and simply the ugliest man I'd ever seen. When they passed out necks, he thought they said sex and asked for lots and lots. His chin and his Adam's apple looked like twin brothers in bunk beds. His nose appeared to be on sideways, and his eyes were different sizes. His ears were so prominent that from the front he looked like a taxi cab coming down the street with the doors open. And his hair resembled a lawn with persistent crabgrass. The longest strands issued from his nostrils. As he reached the bar, the clock over the cash box stopped. And I couldn't blame it for a bit. So ugly you could stop time. That's an old one. I forgot about my bladder and gulped the drink I was nursing. The doc saw my face, swiveled his massive bulk around to look, and damn near dropped his scotch. You have to understand that the doc firmly believes in the Irish legend that on Judgment Day you will be suspended head down in a barrel containing all the liquor you've ever spilled, and if you drown, to hell with you. Even Callahan shuddered. Jesus Christ, I hope the fuck that's not true. I'll drown. I've spilled so much goddamn alcohol in my lifetime, so, oh my god, especially parties and the fucking... Yeah, never mind. I digress. The guy glanced at the perfectly ordinary-looking accomplices on either side of him, pulled a fistful of singles from the pocket of his sports coat, and said, "Boilermakers." The noise of the crowd had begun to abate as folks caught sight of the apparition, and the single word was plainly audible. Callahan's cigar traveled from one side of his mouth to the other. He shrugged his broad shoulders and produced 3 shot glasses and 3 chasers, unable to take his eyes off the guy in the middle. Must be ugly like a train wreck. The 3 of them lifted their shots, upended them, then did the same with the beers. "Again," said the ugly man, and Callahan refilled their glasses. The second round went down, if anything, faster than the first. Again. Callahan blinked, shrugged again, and made 3 more boilers. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Now, even in Callahan's place on a Friday night, amid some of the most dedicated drinkers that ever tried to outdo a sponge, this sort of thing is bound to attract some attention. The silence was nearly complete. Some of the boys in the far corners began climbing up on tables and chairs to watch, and there were enough necks being craned to make a chiropractor dizzy with glee. Over at the Piano Fest, Eddie began a pool, taking bets on how many more rounds the 3 strangers could survive. After the 6th set of boilers had been made and unmade, Callahan tried to call a halt. "Sorry, gents. If you want to commit suicide, you'll have to find another joint." The 2 flankers nodded, but the ugly man reached into his sports coat pocket again, produced a chopstick, and balanced it on his index finger. "Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers," he said, clearly and distinctly. "British Constitution. The Leith Police dismisseth us. Sister Susie's sewing shirts for soldiers." He kept it up until Callahan exchanged looks with Doc Webster, put another shot in front of him. The guy shut up and gulped the sauce, sent a glass of beer again after it, and waited expectantly. Callahan sighed and opened a fresh bottle, and I could tell from the label that it was the colored water Tom Hauptmann drinks when he's working. explaining to anyone who'll listen that the wages of gin are breath. I guess the big barkeep figured this mug was too far gone to notice the difference. But as he reached out to pour, the unlovely customer put his hand over his glass. "Wait a bit," he said faintly, his voice suddenly wavering. I don't know. Maybe Oh, Lord, I don't feel too good. I think I'm gonna... He clutched his middle and leaned over the bar, and a ghastly mess splattered on the countertop. A great, disgusted groan went up, and those of the boys with weak stomachs began to make their way toward the door. But the real stampede began when the hapless strangers, two companions, grinning widely, produced a pair of spoons and dug in. I would have bet my stone teeth that nothing short of an earthquake could empty Callahan's place on a Friday night, but that about did it. Folks fled in all directions, out the front door, the back door, even the windows. Horror on every face, hideous gurgling cries, fading into the night. When the smoke had cleared and the commotion ceased, Callahan and Doc and I were the only survivors, and even the indomitable Callahan looked green about the gills. Tom was out cold on the floor behind the bar. And that damned practical joker and his two cronies turned around, looked at the empty saloon, and began laughing hard enough to bust a gut, slapping their thighs and punching each other on the shoulder. "What the hell?" I began, and the ugly man, looking fully recovered now, turned to face me, still laughing fit to kill. He pulled open his sports coat, disclosing a hot water bottle pinned over the inside pocket. "Beef stew," he gasped, and his pals began laughing even harder. Callahan went from pale green to bright red, and his hand went under the bar, emerging with a softball bat. "No, Mike," I cried. "Don't. I know how you feel, but there's just a wild chance that some jury somewhere in the world might convict you." Muscles bulged in his jaw, but he got a grip on himself and lowered the bat. The three waterheads kept on chortling, oblivious. "All right, goddammit," Callahan bellowed. "You've had your fun. Now get the rest of this crap off my bar and get out of here before I murder yous." I was startled to notice that Doc was grinning broadly. It didn't figure to be his kind of humor. Wow. The three wits, sensing danger at last, nodded and began spooning up the remains of the stew. In no time, the bar top was reasonably clean. The ugly joker offered Callahan a 10 spot for his trouble, and nearly had it for dessert. Still smiling idiotically, they headed for the door and disappeared into the night. Callahan caught sight of the Doc's grin and glared at him, still furious. "What the hell are you laughing at?" he growled, and the Doc's grin got even wider. "I saw that gag pulled once before, Mike," he said, "and I recognized it right off. So, that makes it funny? Hell no." "Well then, that guy's stomach must be pretty good to handle all that booze," the Doc said happily. "But I wonder how he and his buddies are gonna like the seasoning I put in the stew while their backs were turned." The Doc opened his pudgy fist, and there was a little bottle in it, labeled Serum of Ipecac. Callahan's eyes widened, and then he smiled. Now, I had to look up what the fuck was Serum of Ipecac. And apparently it's an old medicine to induce vomiting. So, there you go. That's chapter 6. That's in chapter 6. We're going to move on to chapter 7. Chapter 7 is A Voice is Heard in Rama. The Great Santini. Emetic. Yeah. Yeah. Ipecac. Emetic. This is a scene from the Great Santini. Really? I had no idea. You'll have to send me that, dude. All right. We're going to do a vape here. And then I'm going to induce more coughing, probably. And hey, if you're here hanging out listening to me and you're new, please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would greatly appreciate it. I was at 217. I'm at 215, so two of them gave up on me. I don't know why. I think I'll cry. No, I won't. I don't care. All right, here we go. Chapter 7. A voice is heard in Rama. What are we? We're at 10:26. Okay, so we got plenty of time. How should I know? It was a combination of things, I guess. And no special reason. For one thing, the place doesn't look like much from the outside, nor is the interior by any stretch of the imagination romantic. More like a cross between a Chinese fire drill and Tim Finnegan's last party. Most nights. But then, you can't tell. Oh, wait a minute. I totally. That sentence didn't make sense. Sentence didn't make sense to my brain. It did a hiccup there. All right. Nor is the interior by any stretch of the imagination romantic. More like a cross between a Chinese fire drill and Tim Finnegan's last party, most nights. But then, you can't tell that from the highway either. Whatever the reason, it just sort of turned out that women didn't come into Callahan's place. All right, maybe I'm ducking the issue. Maybe there was some kind of masculine aura about the place, a psychic emanation of chauvinistic piggery that kept it a male bastion for so long. Maybe we were extended adolescents, emotionally retarded, projecting a telepathic equivalent of the No Girls Allowed sign on Tubby's clubhouse. There's surely no doubt that Callahan's is culturally descended from the grand tradition of Irish bars, and they tend to be misogynistic. Long Drink McGonagall's father-in-law, Thirsty O'Toole, assures us that Irishmen go to pubs to get shut of the women. But I can't really believe there was ever any prejudice intended. Callahan doesn't insist that his customers be human. Certainly no effort was ever made to bar women, as happened at McSorley's. But men didn't come to Callahan's place to meet women. And that may be why the few that chanced to drop in generally left quickly. Then one night a woman walked in and stayed. And I was real proud of the way the boys acted. It was Pun Day night, as it happened. A little late in the evening, a perfectly good topic, trees, had been worked over for so long that the three surviving contestants, Doc Webster, Tom Flannery, and Long Drink, were, pardon me, stumped. Callahan declared all three co-winners and, as custom demanded, refunded their night's tab. But, as it was still a bit early, we decided to hold a playoff for Grand Pundit. No holds barred. Any topic. And the three champions agreed. Long Drink led off, his eyes filled with that terrible gleam that presages a true stinker. They call him Long Drink because he is one long drink of water. When he sits, he looks like he's standing. And when he stands, he looks like three other guys. He doesn't mass much more than a pickup truck. And he is the only man I know who can talk and drink whiskey at the same time. He does a lot of both. Gentlemen, he drawled, demonstrating the trick. The story I am about to relate takes place in the distant future. Interstellar travel is commonplace. Contacts with alien races are familiar experiences. One day, however, a planet is discovered out Antare's way, whose sole inhabitant is an enormous humanoid, 3 miles high and made of granite. At first, it is mistaken for an immense statue left by some vanished race of giants, for it squats motionless on a yellow plain, exhibiting no outward sign of life. It has legs, but it never rises to walk on them. It has a mouth, but never eats or speaks. It has what appears to be a perfectly functional brain, the size of a 4-story condominium, but the organ lies dormant. Electrochemical activity at a standstill, yet it lives. This puzzles the hell out of the scientists, who try everything they can to think of to get some sign of life from the behemoth. In vain. It just squats, motionless and seemingly thoughtless, until one day a xenobiologist, frustrated beyond endurance, screams, "How could evolution give legs, mouth, and a brain to a creature that doesn't use them?" It happens that he's the first one to ask a direct question in the thing's presence. It rises with a thunderous rumble to its full height, scattering the clouds, thinks for a second, booms, "It couldn't," and squats down again. "My God!" exclaims the xenobiologist. "Of course! It only stands to reason." Monday night. There was the extended pause, in which the sound of long drink blinking was plainly audible. Then a hailstorm of glasses, full and empty, burst into the fireplace, loud enough to drown out the great collective groan. Doc Webster's eyes rolled briefly, like loaded dice, and came up snake eyes. Callahan began passing out fresh drinks with a slightly stunned expression. The doc contemplated a while, looking a lot like some of the merrier representations of the Buddha. Bug-eyed, punster sort of stuff, eh? Say, did you boys ever hear of the planet where the inhabitants were mobile flowers? Remarkably similar to earthly blooms, but they had feet and human-like intelligence. The whole planet, from the biggest bouquet to the smallest corsage, was rolled over by a king named Richard the Artichoke Heart. Anyhow, one day, a pale-eyed perennial caught Richard's eye at a court orgy, and I tuned the doc out for a second. Fast Eddie, sensing some truly legendary horror in the offering, had stealthily left his piano stool and began edging casually toward the fire extinguisher in the corner, an expression of rapt attention on his monkey face. There's enough of the doc to make 2 or 3 good targets, but I sidled out of the line of fire just the same. The smitten monarch engaged royal tutors of all sorts to no avail, the doc was saying. Artists, musicians, philosophers, scientists, and mathematicians failed. Failed alike to engage the attention of the witless concubine, whose only apparent interest was in gathering pollen. At last, the embarrassed Richard gave her up as hopeless and had some retinone My brain won't do that one. Retinone minister later that night. I can lead a horticulture, but I can't make her think. The doc's poker face was perfect. And in the terrible pause that ensued before Eddie could trigger the extinguisher, a clear, sweet contralto voice asked, "What sort of flower was she?" And every head in the place swung toward the door like weather vanes in a windstorm. And there she was. She was a big woman, but none of it was extra. And she stood framed in the doorway with an easy grace that a ballerina might have envied. Her hair was long and straight, the color of polished obsidian. Her skin was fair without being pale, and she wore a long-sleeved, high-necked dress of royal purple that brushed sawdust from the floor. She was pretty enough to make a preacher kick a hole in a stained glass window. That's pretty pretty. She fielded the combined stares of a couple dozen goggle-eyed males with no effort at all, a half smile playing at the corners of her mouth. And I had the distinct feeling that we could all have turned into three-headed tree frogs without disturbing her composure in the least. Perhaps that was why our own composure was so manifestly smithereened and scattered to the four winds. But I'm more inclined to think it was the 1-2 sledgehammer punch of a woman in Callahan's, followed by the equally startling, "Why the hell not?" What shocked us the most was that we had no idea why we should be so shocked. Like opening a ginger ale and finding Jameson's inside. Nothing wrong with it, but it just sort of takes you by surprise. Doc Webster tried unsuccessfully to clear his throat. His poker face was now royally flushed. He stammered. "I don't know what kind of a flower she was, young lady." A grin stuck red lips back from perfect teeth. "I just thought," she said clearly, "that the king might be suffering from fuchsia shock." There was a pause, and the soft, subtle sound of eyeballs glazing. You can only absorb so much at once, but Callahan rose magnificently to the occasion. "Sure in begonia," he breathed. "Oh," she gasped and blinked. "Perhaps I shouldn't be here. I didn't realize this was an iris bar." Longdrink choked, spraying Bushmills like a 6'7" aerosol. And suddenly we were all roaring, hooting, rocking with laughter, the kind that leaves your eyes wet and your sides sore. The timbers rang with merriment, a happy release of tension. "Lord, Lord," the doc gasped, wiping his eyes and clutching at his ample belly. "Nobody's made a straight man out of me in 20 years. Woo-hoo!" He shook his head ruefully, still chuckling. "Lady," said Callahan, a world of meaning in the words, "you'll do." There was respect in his whiskey baritone and a strange, deep satisfaction. She acknowledged the former with a nod and stepped into the room. The bar had been crowded, but by the time she reached it, she had enough room to park a truck and a wide choice of seats. She picked one and sat gracefully, making a small noise of surprise and delight. "I never thought I'd see an armchair this tall," she said to Callahan, setting her purse on the bar. "I don't believe in bar stools," Callahan explained. "A man should be comfortable where he drinks." "A man?" she said pointedly. "Oh, a woman ought to be comfortable all the time," he agreed solemnly. "Hey, Eddie." "Yeah, boss." "You want to open a window? I think I smell a bra smoke. She reddened. I looked at Eddie, was surprised to see a glare instead of a grin. My God, I thought, crazily, Fast Eddie has been smitten. It didn't seem possible. Ever since his wife divorced him a few years back, Eddie had been a confirmed loner. Touché, she conceded at last. I had no call to criticize your speech patterns. I'm sorry. No problem, Callahan assured her. My name's Mike. He stuck out a big calloused hand. She shook it gravely. I am Rachel. What'll it be, Rachel? Bourbon, please. Callahan nodded, turned round and began mixing I.W. Harper and ice cubes in the proper proportions. She opened her purse, removed a wallet from it, and pulled out a $5 bill. And I found that I was talking. I'm afraid you can't use that fin in here, Rachel. It felt strange not to be paralyzed. She turned to me, and I saw her eyes for the first time, close up. And I felt my tongue being retied tighter than ever. I don't know how to describe those eyes, except to say that they looked impossibly old. Older than eyes could be. There was some pain in them, sure, but people that fate leads to Callahan's place have anguished eyes, even they, eyes when they first arrive. But beyond the pain was a kind of unspeakable weariness, a terrible and ancient knowledge that had not brought satisfaction. My memory churned and produced the only remotely similar pair of eyes I have ever seen. My grandmother, dead of cancer these 20 years. I beg your pardon, she said politely, and I tried hard to climb back up out of her eyes. Tom Flannery sensed my distress and came to my aid. Jake's right, Rachel, he said. Callahan doesn't believe in cash registers either. He only deals in singles. You mean everything in the house costs $1? She asked in surprise. Oh, no, Tom demurred. Everything in the house costs 50 cents. There's a cigar box full of quarters down there, see? And you pick up your change on the way out. If you've left your glass on the bar. What's the alternative? She asked with a puzzled frown, as Callahan set her drink down before her. Smash your glass in the fireplace, Callahan said cheerfully. Does you a world of good sometimes. It's worth 50 cents easy. Her whole face brightened. A long time ago, she said thoughtfully, I bought an entire house for the single purpose of smashing crockery in it. I think I like your place, Mike. That makes two of us, he said comfortably, and poured himself a beer mug of Bushmill's best. The Callahan's place, she said, draining her glass in one easy motion and holding it high. Callahan didn't bat an eye. He inhaled his own whiskey as fast as it poured and raised his glass too. Two arms fell as one. Glass shattered in the fireplace, and a spontaneous cheer went up from all around. Long Drink McGongle began singing, For She's a Jolly Good Fellow, and he was stifled without ceremony. Shut up! She turned to face us. Lots of bars make a woman feel welcome, she said. This is the first one that ever made me feel at home. Thank you all. Ever see a whole bar blush? Fast Eddie came in the door. No one had seen him leave. With change of a $5 from the all-night deli across the street, and gave it to her gravely, a solemn look on his wrinkled face. But Callahan refused the single she offered. One exquisite eyebrow rose quizzically. Pardon me. Rachel, he said, this here is pun day night at my place, and the champagne punster doesn't have to pay his or her bar bill. From what I've heard already, I'd say you've got a shot at the title. Her face lit with a merry smile. Callahan explained the format and the subject we were using and built her another drink. She paused a moment in thought. The Middle East, she began at last, finally achieved a kind of uneasy stability in the late 1970s. Israel and the Pan-Arabian nations maintaining a fragile truce. Then one day, the Arabian ambassador to Israel, Opin Bombay, chanced to spy a carousel in the marketplace and being intrigued by this westernish recreation, decided to try it. Being a neophyte, he became extremely dizzy, dismounted from his wooden steed with great difficulty, and reeled out of the square. A Chinese shepherd called Ehu was passing through Jerusalem at that time with 3 fine sheep, and Bombay staggered into their midst. The middle sheep promptly ate him. Horrific visions of the war that would inevitably ensue racing through his mind, Ehu flung up his hands and cried, "Middle lamb, you've had a dizzy bay." There was a ghastly silence, such as must exist on the airless waste of the moon, and Callahan's ever-present cigar fell from his lips, landing with an absurdly loud splash in his glass. Oblivious, he lifted the glass and drank. When he sat it down again, the cigar was back in his teeth, soggy and drooping. Long Drink made a face. "You didn't keep to the subject," he complained feebly, and Fast Eddie began to cloud up. But she stood her ground, deadpan. The story, she maintained, was clearly about Zion's fiction. And the silence fell in a million shards. Whoops up the laughter, blending in with groans and a volley of breaking glass on the hearth. Tom Flannery entered a forfeit about the same time Long Drink and the Doc conceded defeat, and that was Rachel's first night at Callahan's place. She returned on the following night, and then on the following Tuesday, and soon became something of a regular. She was there when Tommy Jansen got married, right in front of the fireplace, and the night the place caught fire. And that sad night when gentle, soft, smiling Tom Flannery finally failed to show up. Tom's doctors had given him 9 months to live. The day before he happened into Callahan's place, and she just seemed to fit. Although she was never by any stretch of the imagination one of the boys, she fit in a way that reminded me very faintly of Wendy in Never Never Land. But she was not disturbed by the hooliganery of her Lost Boys, nor dismayed by their occasional ribaldry. Once, when Doc Webster, slightly jealous of her superior puns, tried to embarrass her with an off-color joke, she responded with a gag so steamy and so hilarious that the Doc blushed clear down to his ankles and laughed himself silly. And she was incredibly gentle with Fast Eddie, who came to display the classic signs of a man goofy with love. Suddenly, all he knew how to play was torch songs, and while she always praised him, she pointedly missed the point, yet somehow allowed him to keep his self-respect. Curiously, Eddie was the only one of us to fall for her. Certainly, all of us at Callahan's were heir to the tradition of the B movie, and the A movie for that matter, that any female who enters your life in a dramatic manner must be your fated love. But somehow, Rachel didn't elicit that reflex of imagined desire in us. She was never cold. You retained at all times an impression of vibrant femininity. But she never projected either the air of receptivity, which provokes passes, or the studied indifference, which is the same thing in disguise. We never even learned much about her, where she lived, and that sort of thing. All we knew was that she was fun to be with. She was a note of nearly pure cheer, even in a place where good cheer was commonplace. But only nearly pure. There were those eyes. They reminded me in many ways of Mickey Finn's eyes when he first came around. And I knew it was only a matter of time before the right toast would unlock her heart and let out all that pain. Hell, we all knew it. But she had to do it herself. You don't pry in Callahan's place. It was nearly 4 months before she finally opened up, a Thursday night, I believe it was. She'd been abstracted lately, still taking part in her conventional banter, but strangely distant, too. And I was half expecting what happened. Doc Webster had come bustling in about 9, later than usual for him on a Thursday, since he has no hospital duties that night. So he bought around for the house and explained. If asked, the doc would assist at home birthings, a practice he's been at some pains to keep from the attention of both the AMA and the Suffolk County Police Department, ever since the great midwife bust at the Santa Cruz Birth Center a few years back. Doc says the pregnant women aren't sick, that a lady ought to call the tune in her own birthing, all other things being equal. He has oxygen and other useful things in his car, and he hasn't lost one yet. She was a prima para, he said with satisfaction, but her pelvic clearance was adequate. Presentation was classic. She did a modified Lamaze, and damned well, too. Fine, healthy boy, 8 pounds and some. Suckling like a bilge pump, the last I saw him. Lord, I'm thirsty myself. Somehow news of new life makes you feel just plain good. And the doc's own joy was contagious. When the last glass had been filled, we all stood up and faced the fireplace. To motherhood, we bellowed together, and it rained glass for a while. And when the racket had stopped, we heard a sound from inside the joint's single restroom, a literally unmistakable sound. Rachel, weeping. Absurd situation. Over 24 alarmed and anxious men, accustomed to dropping everything and running to anyone in pain. All of us clustered around the bathroom door labeled folks, like winos outside a soup kitchen. And not one of us with the guts to open up the damn door because, no, there's a lady in there. Fast Eddie's ferocious glare would have stopped us if scruples hadn't. Confused and mortally embarrassed, we shuffled our feet and looked for something tactful to say. Inside, the sobbing persisted, just muted now. Callahan coughed. Rachel? She broke off, crying, Yes? You gonna be long? My back teeth are floating. There was a pause. Not long, Mike. I'll hurry. Take your time, he rumbled. She did. But eventually the door opened and she came out, no tear tracks evident, obviously in control again. Callahan mumbled thanks, glared around at us furiously, and went in. We came to our senses and began bustling aimlessly around the room, looking at anything but Rachel, talking spiritedly. Callahan flushed it almost at once and came back out, looking as innocent as a face like that will let him. He went back behind the bar, dusting his meaty hands. Rachel was sitting at the bar, staring at where a mirror would be if Callahan believed in encouraging narcissism. Plain bare wall, crisscrossed with all the epigrams, proverbs, and puns Callahan found worth recording over the past I don't know how many years of flashing wit. The one she was looking at was attributed to a guy named Robinson. It said, "A man should live forever or die trying." It's a good quote. "Women too, I suppose?" she asked. Callahan looked puzzled, and she pointed to the quote. He studied it a minute, then turned back to her. "Got a better idea?" She shrugged, held out her hand. The big barkeep filled it with a glass of I.W. Harper and poured one for himself. The sparkling conversation going on around the room seemed to sort of run down. She sipped daintily, then said a word I'd never heard her use before, and gulped the rest. Then she rose from her chair and walked to the chalk line before the fire. Silence was total now. "To motherhood," she said distinctly, and deep sixth glass sounded like a shattering heart. She turned then and looked at us speculatively, trying to decide whether to cut loose of it. "I've been here over 3 months," she said, and in that time I've had a lot of laughs, but I've seen some real pain too. And I've seen you boys help the ones that hurt. That man with the one leg, the one whose fiancée entered a nunnery and was too devout to let himself be sad. The ski instructor who'd gone blind. Poor Tom Flannery. I've heard much stranger stories, too, and I think if anyone can help me, you can. I calculate that by now I must have heard at least 100 people ask for help of one kind or another in Callahan's. It's that kind of place. I only remember one getting turned down, and he was a special case. We indicated our willingness to help any way we could, and Fast Eddie fetched her a chair and a fresh drink. She had enough composure back to thank him gently, and then she began talking. During her entire narrative, her voice remained flat, impersonal, as though she was giving a history lesson. Her first words explained why. Ooh, 10:57. Guys, I think we'll stop there. Should I stop it there? Yep, I'll stop it there. That's where we're stopping. 10:57. All right, let me put an underline here. Give me a pen because I'll never remember that this is where we stopped at. So I need to put a line here. Okay. There we go. That's where we're stopping. And thanks, guys, for being here and listening. I greatly appreciate you. Dude, I don't know if you heard me, or if you were here, or if I told you. I don't remember. I wasn't going to do tonight. I sent you 2 messages on Facebook, and they were both me saying that I don't think I was going to read tonight, and then the second one was to pass that on to Eli. And then by 9:30, I'm like, you know what? I'm going on and read because I miss reading. So I miss those guys. So I'm gonna do it. And so I deleted. That was the 2 deleted messages in the messenger. Oh, I sent to you. But I'm glad I did. So, I think I'm going to put chapter 1 of, or video 1 of the new Little Blue Book, and it is The Futility of Belief in God. And I think I'll do video 1 of it tonight, so it'll be up sometime after this. So that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll do video 2. I don't know. I've only read the first 2 chapters, so I really don't like putting up videos before I've read them, at least the chapters at least once. So I don't know. I'll do at least video 1. But all right, guys, thanks for listening, man. I love you guys. Greatly appreciate you. And I'll catch you next Wednesday. All right. Peace out with sauerkraut, guys.